So, here we are, right before a board meeting. What do you think, Stuart? How do you feel today?
I'm always optimistic, that we're going to get something done. It never happens as quickly as I would like, but I do think we're going to get something done. Our message is determined, it's clear, and sooner or later it's going to take effect, and we're going to end up with a shelter.
Why do you think they're dragging their feet?
My personal opinion is they don't want to go back to their constituents and explain that they took on the obligation and the continuing expense of a cat shelter, not just the initial expense, because there are ways around that. They could buy a house that the town would still own, but then there's a continued expense. That's my guess. I think if enough pressure is put on them, they'll do it. I think it's just a matter of getting enough people behind us to get it done.
Now, I know you've been a cat lover for years, and I know you've been involved in rescue. You're also involved in the rescue community here in Long Island. How bad is or how great is the demand or the need for a shelter here in North Hempstead?
I think there's a tremendous demand for a shelter. Aside from the moral grounds of these animals that are outside through no fault of their own, they're not wild creatures, they're not skunks, they're not raccoons. They're animals that, given a break, a lot of them would end up being very good pets. They just haven't been fortunate enough to have been taken inside. But aside from that, and aside from the medical needs that a lot of those cats may have outside, there are a lot of constituents in this town that are paying exorbitant taxes that may be unfortunate enough to pass away or become incapacitated. And some percentage of those people, their families are not going to step up. They're not going to take the cats. And the cats are going to either end up being euthanized or somehow end up back on the streets. And that's very sad. That should never happen in a wealthy town like this.
Well, we see that happening all the time in rescue. When a senior passes away, if there's no family or the family doesn't step up, it's sadly a recurrent phenomenon.
Well, that's something particularly that should not happen, in a town like this that has the resources to stop that. A shelter is basically for domesticated cats. For people that have these cats inside, they should be staying inside. They're used to living their lives that way. And for them to be thrust out is cruel.
You were telling me too, you have a lot of friends who are rescuers, about people just being overwhelmed with the amount of rescue that they have to do, not getting enough sleep, taking a financial damage. Could you talk more about that? Like the toll that it takes on rescuers not having a shelter?
There are people, there are people out there doing, tremendous work. And a number of them, come to mind that are basically feeding cats every day, trapping cats every day. Some people do both, some people do one or the other. Oftentimes at great financial expense to them. Not only the financial expense, but the expense to their lives. It doesn't leave you much time for having much of a life on the side. And that burden would certainly be eased somewhat to a decent extent if we had a shelter. That would certainly take care of some of the financial aspect of it. If you find a cat in this town at midnight, if you want to help the cat, it may be in dire need of help. You have to take it to an emergency vet, which will charge you 3 times the cost of a normal vet. What's your choice? You either do that or you let it suffer and die. Whereas in Hempstead, just to pick another municipality, they have somebody at the shelter 24/7, and that cat will be taken in, and they'll get a hold of somebody, and that cat will be seen at no cost to you.
Now, what happens if you're trapping, we've both trapped together in the past. What happens if you're trapping a colony of, let's say, 8 to 10 to 20 cats? How do you make a dent in it without access to spay-neuter? Because we have a voucher program, which is great, which we didn't have before this campaign really started,
We've now gone, there's supposed to be a regular monthly clinic. And the purpose originally of the voucher program was to be an enhancement to the monthly clinic. Ostensibly in December we have one, a regular clinic, and that'll be the first one since May. So we'll have gone 6 months without a monthly clinic. So the voucher program is great, but in the meantime, really what it's done is not enhance anything, it's taken the place of it. So, is it better than it was when they're both, working, assuming that the feral cat coordinator doesn't quit again? Is it better than it was? Absolutely. But there's just so much more, that needs to be done.
So December 2024, this would be the first month that we've actually had the clinic and the voucher program together. We never had them coexist, right? Because they took forever to.
They took forever to start the program. It may very well be true. I wouldn't swear to it, but I think that could be in fact true. It's the first time they'll have worked together.
Now, the other thing you were bringing up, Hempstead. A friend of mine recently took a cat to Hempstead, and I was impressed. They have 3 days a week for spay and neuter. I mean, like I said, you take a colony of cats that are 20 cats, you could get that done within a month.
And that used to be 5 days. It's down to 3.
Wow.
I don't know if that's temporary or permanent, but even 3 is a huge, enhancement. Also, it's worth noting in this town that they never publicized, even though they were supposed to, the existence of the voucher program. And the reason probably for that is that they figured the rescuers would be told anyway. The regular homeowners, they don't want people to know, because the more people that know, the more likely people are to complain about the lack of a shelter. And they're not looking for that kind of publicity. That's my personal opinion.
For the people that are watching this video, what do you suggest if they want to take advantage of the voucher program? What should they...
Well, call 311. They'll get you in touch with a shelter, and you'll go over there and pick up a voucher. And you'll make an appointment, which will probably take a week to 2 weeks at Helping Boy in East Meadow. And you'll get your cat fixed. But I also suggest people that need that realize the need for a shelter and call up their council people or email them, call them, or do both, whatever they want to do, to let them know that they need a shelter. That it's crucial that we have one in this town. We've gone 20 years without a shelter in this town. The only town on Long Island, by the way, that has no cat shelter.
So we've spoken about the rescue angle. Let me ask you, from the activist point of view, what's needed? What is the cat lover who lives in North Hempstead? What should they do? What can they do?
Well, they can contact their representatives. I mean, that's what they're there for. I mean, their representatives are basically supposed to fulfill the will of the people and fulfill the needs of the people. And this, to me, is a pressing need. I mean, the fact is that this, being a wealthy town, the only town with no cat shelter, and seeing the suffering. I mean, this happens to be a particularly cold day that we're filming this. There are animals out there starving and freezing for no reason whatsoever. I mean, there's suffering going on that's totally preventable. And that's very sad, and it's irresponsible.
So if people want to participate, I believe you can go to the Facebook page, or there's a website called helptonhcats.com. That's on your...
My shirt there.
Yeah,
My shirt, yeah,
very nice.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, yeah, people can do that. They can call the town, leave messages with their representative, whoever that happens to be. They can also leave a message with the supervisor, Jen DeSena.
But people are going to have to get involved, right?
I think so. I think that, if you want something done, you can't count on somebody else to do it. You've got to take some action yourself. I mean, that's a lesson that I've learned over the last number of years.
Speaking of which, in a couple of minutes, we're going to go in there and talk to them yet again.
And you know what? The idea is to just keep putting pressure on them, and sooner or later, something's going to get done. Hopefully sooner.
Right. Thank you very much, Stuart.
You're very welcome.